against Bitcoin.
It's going up forever.
You're against Bitcoin, you're against freedom.
Welcome to another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live, where your number one source for the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, color breaking news, culture, ermatic warfare. Will be your guide through the separation of money and state. Very interesting. The Overton window continues to shift. Very popular content creators that are not within the Bitcoin echo chamber continue to talk about Bitcoin. It seems like Tim Pool, one of the most popular broadcasters or podcasters on the face of the planet, is literally saying, like, I'm happy I bought Bitcoin, right? And this is something that Max Kaiser, shout out to him, to give him credit, started like a decade ago. You know, he tried to give supposedly those 10,000 Bitcoin to Alex Jones, right? He was trying to orange pill Tim Pool from the very beginning. But, you know, Number Go Up does something very interesting, and I've noticed this after a while. It's going to be my 8th year in Bitcoin. And what I've noticed is you tell people, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, right? And they don't really listen the first time. But then they start to listen when the number goes up because you planted that seed, and then they remember, like, holy crap, Nico told me 5 years ago, this thing is going up, and then they convert, right? So Number Go Up does its thing, right? You just got to plant the seeds, really. So this is very interesting. We're going to talk about that today. We have all the data. And then, of course, Gary Gensler getting grilled by the legacy media. So a government official, right? This is crazy. Bitcoin's incentives are winning. It's so funny when you have BlackRock on your side, the conversation changes. But you know, you literally saw Gary Gensler getting grilled on the legacy media. And usually you'd never see this. Usually the legacy media is very friendly towards, you know, the government narrative or government talking points. So I found that very interesting. So we're going to get into all this today. It's going to be a great conversation. We also have a very special guest joining us as well. We have McShane. Thank you so much for joining us, man. Appreciate you coming back on the show.
Great to be here, man. I'm excited. Love what you guys do.
It's been a minute. And of course, my legendary host, he's smiling today. So it's going to be an incredible show.
Dude, I smile every morning, bro. You just catch me at the wrong time.
No. Sometimes you just got like straight face. And when it's a straight face, it's just, you know, it's going
to be a bad day. It's going to be a good day, bro.
It's a bad omen. It's a bad omen. Anyways, what are we going to talk about during the culture, homie?
Yeah, so McShane, of course, head of programming at the Bitcoin conference. So we'll touch on that a little bit, but we kind of teed up a pretty cool conversation for Bitcoiners out there. You know, we are in price discovery mode. We're trying to get the new Bitcoiners on board, get their mind rights going into this bull run. So we're going to kind of touch on that and then move into what we can look forward to at Bitcoin conference, you know, Bitcoin Asia, Bitcoin Nashville. So I think we got a solid show, but we will kind of touch on the ideas of like what new Bitcoiners should do, because this is basically why I do the show as well, is because I made every single mistake when I got into Bitcoin and I just somehow survived it. And this is the point of the show, is to make sure that people minimize the mistakes. So I think McShane's going to drop some sauce for us today. I'm super excited for this one.
Yeah, 100%. All right, ladies and gentlemen, no more delay. Let's jump straight into it. We have a lot to talk about. Let's check it out. Here we go.
The Bitcoin numbers.
Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Is your seed phrase really secure? Stamp Seed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them on paper. Don't store your generational wealth on paper. Paper is prone to water damage, fire damage. You want to put your generational wealth on one of the strongest metals on planet Earth, titanium. Your words are actually stamped into this metal plate with this hammer and these letter stamps. And once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamped seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin with peace of mind for the long haul. Stamp your seed on Stamp Seed. I also want to give a shout out to our flagship sponsor, Bitcoin Well. Buy real Bitcoin. Bitcoin Well is the self-custody Bitcoin platform on a mission to enable independence. They're a publicly traded company coming out of Canada, established in 2013. They just recently expanded to all 50 US states. And of course, it's the first Bitcoin on-ramp that is Bitcoin self-custody by default. That's right. Can't buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well unless you're going to take it into self-custody, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. So guys, don't delay. Check out bitcoinwell.com today. All right, everybody, at the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 52,170 sats per dollar. Under 2,000 sats is 1,917. Block height 830,605. Blocks to halving 9,395. Halving estimate April 19, 2024. Total Lightning Network capacity 4,789 Bitcoin. Capacity value 249 million US dollars. Realized monetary inflation 1.75%. The market capitalization of Bitcoin $1.02 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 7.43%. In the grand scheme of things, Bitcoin is just getting started. Quick ETF update. I have a feeling that the change in tune from the legacy financial media probably has to do with the fact that BlackRock currently holds 109,000 Bitcoin. The Fidelity ETF is holding 82,000 Bitcoin. And just to kind of give you guys a reference point, it took Michael Saylor really 3.5 years to stack 190,000 Bitcoin. BlackRock, in a matter of months, like in a matter of a month and a half, they stacked 109,000 Bitcoin. We were telling you guys yesterday about the incoming supply shock. They're buying more Bitcoin that is being released onto the market daily. And not to mention the halving is basically in 60 days or so. So, you know, it looks like all the stars are aligning, and, you know, I'm incredibly bullish. Anyways, very interesting things happen when BlackRock is on your team, right? One of those things is the legacy financial media changes tune a little bit. Here is Gary Gensler that absolutely dropped the effing ball with the ETF approval, right? You know, the SEC Twitter got hacked. They didn't follow their own procedures about enabling 2FA. One of the tweets was really ironic because it said, like, don't trust any information unless it comes from the SEC. And the hack tweet was basically the Bitcoin ETF got approved. Then Gary Gensler went out to say, yeah, that tweet did not come from us. It was compromised. Then the next day they said, in fact, it actually was approved. And throughout this whole process, the whole point of the SEC, you know, is to prosecute or to go after market manipulation. They manipulated the F out of the market by not enabling the 2FA themselves, right? So anyway, so here is Gary Gensler going on CNBC, and it's just interesting. It's an interesting conversation. So I'm going to play it. It's about 3 minutes, and then we'll talk about it. Let's check it out.
By regulation.
Is that the problem, though? It's not necessarily Bitcoin, the underlying asset, but more the froth and the potential for fraudsters to use it that has been
This is a
concern?
field, Becky, that's been rife with fraud and manipulation. And look at all the bankruptcies. And you've had on this set people talking about those various bankruptcies. And it's not just one entity. It's entity after entity after entity. And then investors are just lining up in the bankruptcy court.
What do you make of, this goes to the underlying piece of this. You've heard Jamie Dimon say that he would close it down, that basically Bitcoin you've seen the comments, right? It's not just that he closed it down, that he would say it's, you know, used by drug dealers and used by folks who are doing all sorts of illicit and terrible things. There's very few things that trade today that people talk about like that. Now, there are obviously frauds and things that happen, but maybe not like this.
Like the dollar is like 100 times more.
Well, I know that's your perspective, but I'm just I'm curious how you think about that.
That's true, though. This is how much has been money laundered with Bitcoin. This is how much. This is Bitcoin. This is dollar.
Yes, Joe. Look, here's the Jamie Dimon quote. The only true use case for it is for criminals, drug traffickers, money laundering, and tax avoidance. I know, but we have a guest.
That's his opinion.
We have a guest, Joe. What is your opinion? And what is your opinion that we have something trading on the exchange for the public that has this type of use case, at least as described by the president of one of the largest
leading market
financial institutions in the company.
It's the leading market share in ransomware, and that's publicly known.
Right.
You know, it's the token of choice for ransomware. Joe, if I can say, the U.S. dollar, the euro, the yen, you have the whole society using it as a medium of exchange. We buy our cups of coffee, as I see here. Right. We get paid in dollars or yen or euro. And you have a whole central bank and support for one currency generally per economic region. That we don't have here. So there is a very real economic difference.
Which is part of the attraction, since it's decentralized, and you can't have a profligate central bank.
It's not that decentralized, Joe.
Well, I know you're saying because of the ETFs, but really it is.
No, it's not that decentralized, because look how finance tends towards centralization since antiquity. Right. So what do we have? We have a handful of 3 to 6 core so-called crypto exchanges. I understand,
but the asset itself, the way that
that's
the
how
distributed
the accounting ledger.
Right. That's how the ledger. And
now, how many times do you have people on this show that say, "I want to invest in something because how the books and records are kept"? I mean, Joe, really? It's just an accounting ledger. It's a ledger that everyone has, and can't be double counted. It's almost immutable. That's why people think it has inherent value. So you trust it more than an Oracle database?
Yes.
Or you trust it
more than a lot of the Bitcoin bulls say they trust it a lot more than the central bank that enables the fiscal authorities to spend money to the tune of $33 trillion.
That's everybody's investment choice, but
dude, McShane, you want to hit this first?
Oh man, it's so nice to see. It's so nice to see that on mainstream television, man. And look at how they try to goad you into more trust. Look at our central banks. Look at all the magical backing and people you have backing the U.S. dollar. And no, they're absolutely correct. The one thing I would say is it's not that we trust with Bitcoin. You can verify, you can minimize all these third-party trust relationships and verify everything yourself and take personal responsibility for your wealth and have money that actually performs the function of savings.
100%. And it's so like you know, what's interesting too is that he taught a class on Bitcoin. And he's very well informed on the matter. And now all of a sudden that he has, a government job, all of a sudden he's there defending the current system, which he does terribly, because like all he relies on, like his arguments are just like, there's a central bank, everyone uses the dollar, everyone's comfortable with the dollar, but he's not making the case as to why the dollar is better. He's not arguing against what that other gentleman, that anchor, was saying was basically like, look, like the reason that people are attracted to Bitcoin is because they don't trust the central bank. He has no excuse. He has no reasoning to that. Like he has no explanation. He has no argument against that. But, McShane, we've been in Bitcoin for a little bit. Could you have ever imagined this 5 years ago? Like, this is crazy how far we've come.
I was wondering what the transition would look like, and I'm amazed at actually how unhostile it's been. That's a pretty lame attempt by Gary to dissuade people from using Bitcoin. Once BlackRock and these institutions are behind it, I mean, they're going to have to change their tune. I'm curious to see where it goes from here, man. I think my biggest fear is still that the hostile attack vectors will come in the form of on-ramps and off-ramps. So I'm just kind of waiting to see that play out. You already see that in the UK, cracking asking users to provide physical addresses for wallet addresses, which no one in their right mind should comply with, by the way.
Yeah, it's so I get what you're saying. I completely agree. I think there's going to be two attack vectors. Attack vector number one is the attack on Bitcoin mining, which I don't think will be successful because the incentives are just too great. But then the attack on self-custody itself. And then they come up with the words unhosted wallet. I've never read that word. That word's not in the white paper. That's a creation by bureaucrats, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely is. And it's hilarious because that's just it brings the surveillance state into the light. I mean, it's just, no, we want to know everything. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to know these 12 to 24 words. We know where you are at any given time. We need to know where all your money is at any given time. And people sort of, they know this in the back of their heads that they're making this trade-off, convenience. They're trading off their privacy for convenience. But I think with Bitcoiners, especially new Bitcoiners going forward, this will be the first time they really have to reckon with that and make decisions about, where they get their Bitcoin, how they store their Bitcoin. Are they willing to resist peacefully and not comply with the laws that are coming our way? I mean, the laws that are going to make all three of us and everyone in the audience criminals haven't been written yet.
Yeah, and you have no doubt that because I see that inevitable clash coming as well, right? I think the two systems are completely incompatible. You see this with current U.S. sanction policy, how they weaponize the dollar. If there's an open monetary network, right, and there's a system of which a bureaucratic elite control, I don't think those two systems can coexist, because people are just obviously going to choose the open monetary network every single time, which makes Bitcoin obviously, it makes it prone to attack. The politicians are going to villainize it. You hear the rhetoric coming out of Elizabeth Warren. She's tried to use the Wall Street Journal a couple times, basically saying that, this is being used to circumvent U.S. sanctions, right? So we've heard that rhetoric as well. So, but you are convinced that there is going to come a point where, clearly the ETFs are captured Bitcoin. Clearly that's prone to a 6102, right? That's clear. It's clear as day. But do you believe that it's inevitable that they just villainize or criminalize self-custody altogether?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's the same temptation that there is with money printing. It's just no person in power could resist that that data and exerting that control, because what it comes down to is their favorite form of robbery, taxations. They're gonna have a hell of a time collecting from addresses that they can't tie identities to. So they're going to clamp down on that. They're going to arrest all of our favorite hosts and developers of mixing softwares. Many of them are already not allowed to come to the United States or too terrified to. So I hate to be a pessimist, but I think it's going to get more challenging before it gets better on that front.
Do you think they'll let us stream from the gulags, McShane? Like, do you think do you think we'll be able to it'd be a pretty cool show. What do you think we should call it?
Simply Gulags.
Simply Gulags. Yeah, the Bitcoin archipelago. We're gonna live tweet the end, man. It's gonna be great.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, Nico, the gulags will be the best place to be at because all the cool people will be there. So, it might be a good time. I don't know.
They'll put the Bitcoiners all in the same bunk. And then, bro, if you put us all in the same bunk together, I mean, like all in the little gulag house together, we're definitely going to figure out how to get internet. Like,
or get out of the gulag.
The Great Escape. Have you guys seen that movie, by the way?
Yeah, great movie.
That movie's incredible. You haven't seen The Great Escape? The Great Escape.
Oh, McShane hasn't seen McQueen. Amazing.
Yeah, it's an old movie, but it's incredible. It's essentially like World War II U.S. prisoners of war trying to escape, German POW camps. And it's incredible. It's an old movie, but it's a classic. Anyways, Opti, what's your take on Gensler?
Yeah, so like you guys were saying, and I'm might reiterate some of the stuff, but it is very interesting to see Gary Gensler squirm on Squawk Box, considering that he did teach a course at MIT on Bitcoin and quote unquote blockchain. And I think our boy Chris Alamo, hit the nail on the head when he says Gary Gensler wants to be the Treasury Secretary, so he has to bend the knee to get that. And we're seeing this happen in real time. And shouts out to Joe Kern. He is by far my favorite Bitcoin podcaster ever. He's such a legend. Just love to see him put Gary Gensler's feet to the fire. It's such an awesome thing to see. I don't watch news. I don't watch corporate press, but every time I see Joe Kern, It's always a great clip. And then, some of the things that Gary Gensler said there, like Gary Gensler's a big blocker confirmed, like coffee purchases. Like what year are we in? We're going back in time with this Bitcoin FUD. It's absolutely incredible. And there was a point there, and McShane touched on that, and I want to hit on it as well, because we were talking about it yesterday. Gary Gensler said that Bitcoin is quote unquote centralized because of the few exchanges. And remember last year when we were covering Choke Point 2.0 like all year, and this is kind of what Gary Gensler was saying there. He's like, look, you can shut down Bitcoin if you shut down the on and off ramps. And we've been talking about this constantly. And he basically just like slid over that and just kind of slid that in there and was like, yeah, hey, Bitcoin can be shut down because of exchanges. Now, it's very interesting. Obviously, I think he's doing a little bit of gaslighting here, because if he did study Bitcoin, then he knows that exchanges do not equal the Bitcoin network at large. And so, Gary, yes, this is, I don't even want to use the word trust, but like, this is why we like Bitcoin, because it is a decentralized accounting ledger that anyone can opt into, that everyone can surveil and everyone can audit if they run a node. Like, this is why we love Bitcoin. And yes, Gary, we do trust Bitcoin way more than an Oracle. Like, what is he even talking about? You can just tell that he really does want that job as a Treasury Secretary. And again, just using that word trust, like I don't like to use it, but we trust Bitcoin because we can verify the network with our nodes. This is a feature, not a bug, Gary. And you can just tell that he is kind of, He's
captured.
Captured. That's a great way of saying it. But, at times for a while there, sorry, McShane, not to cut you off. Last point. Like at times I was kind of leaning towards the idea that Gary Gensler is a maxi, and hence why he took so long to delay the spot Bitcoin ETF so that, we don't have to prove all these shitcoin ETFs. But now, I've asked the question before on the show, like, who is Gary playing cover for? And I think it's becoming very obvious that he's playing cover for someone, and you can read between the lines here. But McShane, jump in.
I was just going to say that Gary's in a lose-lose position here. He's going to have egg on his face for the rest of his life. And this is an unwinnable battle he's been trying to forge and balance. He's been trying to find. And I don't know if you will see him become a Treasury Secretary. I think it's more likely he gets, goes to the private sector. I believe in the past he tried to join the Binance board. I mean, he's definitely interested in getting in on the side of light and good, but I don't know what it is that keeps him working for the government, to be honest.
Yeah, but it's interesting because it's like we know he knows better, but because of his job, he's willing to lie, and then that goes to a bigger question, which is, if the government, the old Abraham Lincoln, quote or speech, right? Like, if it's a government by the people for the people, but clearly under central banking and fiat, I don't think it's a government by the people for the people. I think it's a government by the government for the government, as long as there's a central bank. I really see that. And you see it, the way that Elizabeth Warren behaves, the way that Gary Gensler behaves. Like, even if there's an alternative system that will benefit the vast majority of Americans, he's willing to argue for the system that benefits the politicians and the bureaucratic elite, right? Which I find very interesting. But, I love Bitcoin in that sense that, it exposes incentives. And I think, that interview, it was no different. It was exposing incentives once again.
I want to double down on your meme there. The government that we are currently find ourselves in is a government for the shadow government, not for the people.
The administrative state. I mean, it's not really shadow government. It's the administrative state. It's right up in your face. Speaking of it, I made this meme. What do you mean we don't control the media anymore? It's interesting what happens when you have BlackRock on your side. All right, guys, no more delay. Let's jump straight into the news. We have a lot to talk about. Let's check it out. Here we go. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor. Have you ever wanted to get into Bitcoin mining and don't know where to start? That's why I want to introduce you to Scott's Build a Mine Bootcamp. He will show you how to build your own Bitcoin mine, how to get the project funded, how to get your facility filled with miners as quickly as possible. With a little luck, and by putting all his techniques and strategies to work that he's developed mining Bitcoin for the last 6 years, you could be mining 5 million Satoshis per day or 0.05 Bitcoin in less than 3 months. On the free webinar, he will give you a high-level roadmap that will help you get on your way to building, owning, and operating your own Bitcoin mining farm. Begin your mining journey today. Register for the free webinar now. Click the link in the description of the video below or contact Scott directly on Telegram using his handle @OfferedScott and learn how to mine those precious, precious Satoshis.
The Daily News.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation Devices. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US. It's fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a simple feature phone. So you will know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes. Experience the peace of mind that comes with taking ownership of your own keys. After a massive sellout during Bitcoin Miami 2023, the Passport is back in stock at foundationdevices.com. Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, completely air-gapped security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. If you're thinking about getting your Bitcoin off exchanges, this is the one for you. Check out the Passport link in the show notes below to learn more. All right, guys, I made it incredibly easy for you guys. You could scan the QR code on your screen. It'll take you directly to the Foundation Devices website where you guys can get yourself a Passport hardware wallet. Remember, guys, we're going to talk about this with McShane during the culture segment. Not your keys, not your cheese. So you definitely want to take back your financial sovereignty by taking self-custody. You could do that with getting yourself a Passport by Foundation. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. All right.
Hey, Nico, wait, before you go, I don't want to cut you off, but guys, smash the like button. We have over 400 people on YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. You know, shouts out to every single one of us. Let's push this content. We love you guys. All right, go, Nico.
Yeah, smash, dude. We forgot to say it yesterday. Yeah, so if you guys are watching the show, smash the like button. Really helps with the algos. If you're watching us on Rumble, on X, on YouTube, just smash the like button. Okay, so I do want to talk about this idea. This idea is called "Politics is downstream from culture." That to change politics, one must first change culture. I think it's a really, really important idea. I do want to read the rest of this quote. It says, the reason why Steve Bannon was interested in this is because he believes in the idea of the Bright Doctrine, which is that if you want to change politics, you first have to change culture because politics flows from culture. If you want to change culture, you have to first understand what the units of culture are, and the people are the units of culture. So if you want to change politics, you first have to change people to change culture. Breitbart considers this idea an important one and often spoke of it in interview or cited in print. Now, Breitbart and Steve Bannon are very divisive figures, but I do believe in this idea that if we want to win the peaceful Bitcoin revolution, and referencing Corey Clipston's article, right, the bright orange future, we need an intransigent minority in the United States. You need a group of people, right, roughly 10 million people in the US, a percentage of people that are immovable when it comes to Bitcoin. So if there's any anti-Bitcoin legislation, right, it's impossible to pass. And think about it basically like the gun laws in the US, right? A lot of people hate guns in the US, but because such a large percentage of the population own guns, it's incredibly difficult to pass anti-gun legislation. So if we want to stay in the US, if we want to hold it down as a first generation American, and Opti and I were talking about this before we went on air, I was sold on this idea that, this was the land of the, home of the brave, land of the free. Clearly it doesn't look like it anymore. I'm a little bit more bullish on the global South these days. Go back to Latin America, so be it. But I'm going to try to hold it down. We're going to try to hold it down in the US for as long as possible. And if we want to do that, we have to take over the culture. And what Bitcoiners have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, is that we are in an information war. We really are. And I'm going to quote this amazing article dropped by our friends over at Bitcoin Magazine, written by the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele. And the very bottom, this is something that we've read to you guys many, many times, right? It says the most vocal detractors, the ones who are afraid and pressuring us to reverse our decision, are the world's most powerful elites and the people who work for or benefit from them. They used to own everything in a way they still do. The media, the banks, the NGOs, the international organizations, and almost all the governments and corporations in the world. And with that, of course, they own the armies, the loans, the money supply, the credit ratings, the narrative, the propaganda, the factories, the food supply. They control international trade and international law. But their most powerful weapon is the control of, quote, the truth, right? So we are in narrative trench warfare. We have to win over the hearts and minds of people. We have to convince them that it's not left versus right, right? It's not red versus blue. It's, it's the party of green, the party of fiat, central bank digital currencies, nihilism, poverty, slavery versus the party of orange, the party of freedom, prosperity, optimism, hope, opportunity. That's really the battle at hand. And to win that battle, we must win over the culture. This is something that we try to do at Simply Bitcoin. And of course, our friends over at Bitcoin Magazine do this as well with their incredible conference, inviting, Vivek Ramaswamy, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., Jordan Peterson made an appearance. I think it was Bitcoin 2022. So it's those types of individuals that are outside of the Bitcoin echo chamber, and they have massive followings outside of the Bitcoin echo chamber these are massive cultural figures. They have a big voice. So when they say something like CBDCs are bad and Bitcoin is good, they have a much wider audience than us Bitcoin content creators that really make Bitcoin content for other Bitcoiners. So this is Tim Pool. We've talked to you guys about him before, and he's fully orange pilled at this point. He's a Bitcoiner at this point. He was told, I'll read you his tweet from himself, read it from the horse's mouth itself. I forget how you say that expression precisely, but something's crazy when you were first told about Bitcoin and Bitcoin was at $1 or a couple cents, and you don't listen and you wait and then you see it at 52,000, that tends to convert you very, very quickly. And that's something that, he started to admit yesterday. And I'm sure because he finally bought in. He finally listened, right? This is someone who was told by Max Kaiser, I think like a decade ago. So here's Tim Pool, massive following on YouTube, multiple channels with over millions of subscribers. On Twitter, he's a massive personality. This is a big cultural figure in the US. He's one of the biggest podcasts right now, mainstream podcasts. So he goes on to say, your 1 year return on Bitcoin is about 133%. Your 5 year return on Bitcoin is 1,163%. Your 10 year return is 15,937%. USD 10-year return is negative 30%. Ladies and gentlemen, that is him being orange pilled. And here's him describing the story. I first got into Bitcoin in 2011. It was about 70 cents. I sold about 20 Bitcoin when it hit $20 and I was stoked. Bitcoin skyrocketed after that. I remember thinking, damn, when it hit $100. Eventually, I thought, fuck it. Maybe I missed a train on this one, but I'll just buy a bunch anyway. Bitcoin is now $51,000. I am very happy. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what happens, right? And look, just because we're at 52,000, and a lot of people might be thinking the same thing, just look into the past, right? If you don't learn from the past, you're destined to repeat it, right? 52,000 in 10 years, when Bitcoin's sitting pretty at a couple $1 million, is going to look like $20. It's going to look like 70 cents. So yeah, it might be a massive number psychologically, but you got to look at the past if you don't want to repeat it. So this is a big deal. This is a big cultural figure that's a Bitcoiner. And he's going to continue advocating for Bitcoin, not only on his Twitter, he's done that on his very, very popular show as well, on the Timcast IRL. He's basically said when the First Republic Bank failed, he's like, look, these banks are going to crap. I'm just happy that I have Bitcoin, right? If more mainstream figures say that, Tucker Carlson, also a huge advocate of Bitcoin, RFK Jr., also a big advocate of Bitcoin. The more people do that, the more we win over the culture. The more we win over the culture, we're not going to have a problem with the politics and the monetary demons, like I like to call them. Anyways, here's a clip from his very famous podcast referencing the subject.
Regulators seized First Republic Bank and struck a deal to sell the bulk of its operations to JP Morgan, Chase & Co., heading off a chaotic collapse that threatened to reignite the recent banking crisis. Yeah, dude, you stuffed a wad of toilet paper in the hole. I don't think you're stopping the waters. JP Morgan said it will assume all of First Republic's $92 billion in deposits, insured and uninsured. It is also buying most of the bank's assets, including about $173 billion in loans and $30 billion in securities. JP Morgan's going to blow up. What? How can you assume bad loans from a bad bank? They're trying to slow this thing down. As part of the agreement, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corp will share losses with JP Morgan on First Republic's loans. You see, there they go. The agency estimated that its insurance fund would take a hit of $13 billion in the deal. JP Morgan also said it would receive $50 billion in financing from the FDIC. The U.S. government is propping up this deal because the system is imploding. I can't tell you what to do. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy Bitcoin. I already got some. I've been buying some recently.
That's all you got to know. That's all you got to know. Now connect that with
Wait, Nico,
legacy.
how many people watch that? How many people watch that?
Dude, his video, he gets like 250,000, 300,000, 500,000 views per episode. And the fact that he said that now, okay, because you got to connect the dots. We're on Simply Bitcoin after all. Connect that with the legacy financial media. And literally him destroying Gary Gensler because Gary Gensler was trying to feed him the BS. People are sick and tired. The echo chamber is breaking. We are winning. We are making progress. This is what it's all about. This is what winning over the culture is all about. This is what winning over the hearts and minds is all about. So take agency, take action. It's up to you, the individual. Spread the orange gospel. It's not left versus right. Don't get lost in the sauce with the divide and conquer strategy of these politicians. Really, Bitcoin is a great unifier. So tell people, listen, guys, it's not the Democrats, it's not the Republican, it's the money that's broken. If you fix the money, you fix the world. All right, I'm going to pass it on to McShane first. McShane, what are your thoughts on this? I know you guys do incredible work at Bitcoin Magazine with the Bitcoin Conference to really get these individuals outside of the Bitcoin echo chamber to talk at the conference. And I know that you guys planned the conference this year strategically around two other certain types of two other conferences. I don't know if you know what I'm referencing.
No. What do you mean?
It's what Nolan always says.
So Nolan was saying, but basically it's the Bitcoin conference is in between the Democratic convention and the Republican convention, and the Bitcoin conference is right in the middle.
This is a huge opportunity this year to have real conversations that are uncensored with politicians. And I don't want to leak any, speakers we haven't announced yet, but those conversations will be happening in Nashville this year, right between the RNC and DNC. Interesting enough, it's so beautiful to see the network effect play out in full force, like as the price rises. I mean, this sort of game theory of Bitcoin is something it's not only a prediction, like it's a truth. You can watch it. There are many examples of it throughout our society. And one small example of such is I used to have to chase Tim Pool to try to, hey, come to the conference. Let's figure something out. Come to your show at the conference. Never really worked out in the past. This year they came to us. So he is he's getting excited about Bitcoin, which is great to see. It's good for everybody. Even if you're just one of those 250,000 viewers of one episode and you get your first touch point, I think we all remember our first, second, third touch points with Bitcoin. Some people take hundreds, some people take just, a dozen little interactions with it throughout their life. But you got to remember, most people have no idea what it really is. They don't have a very deep understanding of it. So getting it just in front of their face as many times as possible. I mean, we've got to be our own marketing campaign here. So it's great to have Tim on our side.
100%. 100%. Well, I'm glad that you dropped that little nugget, because that's and it's so obvious. It's so obvious too. But anyways, Opti, what's your take on this, dude? We have been covering this for quite a while now, almost a year on Simply Bitcoin, and just to watch him, you know, because he's basically saying like, yeah, I bought Bitcoin. But over a year and a half ago, when you and I first started covering this, Opti, he wasn't as convinced, right? He was a little bit skeptical. It only took a bank breaking and Max Kaiser trolling him publicly on Twitter, you know, for him to really, really convert fully and fully accept the orange pill. So what's your take, Opti?
Yeah, well, absolutely love it. Love to see it. And that nugget that McShane just dropped on us, that's very interesting, and absolutely love to see it, because we've been saying for a while, you know, I fundamentally think that anyone that is actually in tune with what's going on can identify the problem, but very few people are talking about the solutions. And now, you know, Tim Pool is a very popular broadcaster, and if he's talking about the solution, even though he kind of framed it like, I can't tell you what to do, I know what I'm going to do, like, you love to see that signal start to spread out in every avenue. And I've been saying that this is one of those things that I think people are really underestimating moving in towards this year and the next year, is just how much Bitcoin has saturated popular culture. Because look, unfortunately, many people have turned their brains off and just look for influencers and the experts to make life decisions. So culture is super important. Hence why we named one of our segments the Daily Culture, so that we can propagate what we believe is not only the best culture, but a culture that will make you guys rich, healthy, and informed. Like, this is the whole point of this show. I want you guys to be top tier humans, and we bring on a bunch of interesting people. We cover popular culture at large and always angle this and funnel this through a Bitcoin lens. And so, look, I don't listen to Tim Pool much, but I do recognize that he has a huge platform and people do listen to him. So, you know, it's absolutely great to see him basically say, look, I'm doing this. And the 250,000 plus viewers are also now thinking, oh, wow, you know, I respect Tim Pool's views on everything else. Maybe I should get some Bitcoin. So, you know, Tim Pool is a political commentator. So hopefully he will continue to talk about the solutions, aka Bitcoin, and not just always talk about the problem. But personally, Nico, like, this is a great development that we're seeing. And I think we're going to see more and more people go this route, because look, we say it all the time. There is no way to vote out of this position we're in unless you're voting with your money. Like, number go up is the best incentive, but you know, it means that we have to also be vigilant and that we're not just here for the fiat gains. Hence why we tell you guys to run the nodes, custody your Bitcoin, plant the seeds of freedoms in your friends and family. And this is how we win the popular culture. But guys, like, as Tim Pool kind of noticed and reference, like, number go up makes our jobs that much easier. And finally we get that 1 or 2 years where we're not just the crazy idiots to our friends and family, we're the geniuses. So, you know, this is why we're going to talk about in the culture with McShane, to not really lose our heads here. But I already tell you guys, I'm going to get stupidly bullish, and I'm going to do my best to, like, not get overly bullish. But, you know, this is my original sin as a Bitcoiner. I just get so excited when we talk about Bitcoin and the price goes up and I can finally, you know, flex on my friends and family. Like, I'm a genius. But, you know,
stay humble, Opti.
I'm trying to stay humble.
So yeah, you know, but it's interesting what number go up technology does. And, you know, this isn't just Tim Pool anymore. When I played you that clip of, that was him, you know, when the Republic Bank collapsed. But now you have the financial media, you know, going against government officials that are literally going up to bat with Bitcoin and saying, yeah, I mean, I think central banking's a scam. Like, I think this Bitcoin thing is good, you know. So we've definitely made progress, but we're not there yet. We haven't won. We haven't won until there's a Bitcoin flag flying over the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C.
Well, it was flying over the Capitol almost.
And we make it into, we're going to talk about that tomorrow, but, we make it into a museum. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, before we get to the culture and speak with our guest today, McShane, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors. They're the they're the Bitcoin companies that make this show possible. So first, I do want to give a shout out to Bitcoin Evangelism, Planting the Seeds for the Decentralized Revolution. This is a book by Brian DeMint, and it's an absolute beast of a resource for orange pilling no coiners and altcoiners alike. This is a book for Bitcoiners who know Bitcoin but have a hard time explaining it to their friends. It's a book for Bitcoiners who are trying to explain Bitcoin only to altcoiners. You could scan the QR code on your screen. It's available on Amazon for you to purchase right now. I highly, highly recommend it. All right, everybody, let's get to the culture. Let's do it. Here we go.
The Daily Culture.
I do want to give a shout out to Kaboom Racks. It's the most trusted place to buy, sell, and host mining equipment. You could check out their racks today by scanning the QR code on your screen, or you could check the link in the video description or the podcast description. Once you scan the QR code, it will take you directly to their Telegram marketplace where you can connect with a member of their sales team. They make purchasing their products easy and transparent, and you could also sell your mining equipment with them. You could tap into their vast network of domestic and international customers when you sell your Bitcoin mining ASICs with them. This is where I personally buy my Bitcoin miners. Check out Kaboom Racks today. All right, Opti.
Hey, Nico, say it one more time. Say it one more time.
You know, it's kind of like a funny story how we got that sponsor. We were at a mining conference. I forget what it was called. It was just called the mining conference. And Opti and I, we set up like a podcasting thing, and we literally said Kaboom Racks like 200 times.
I was in all Kaboom Racks merch. Shouts out to Alex. They were just like giving it. I had stickers all over me, and we're just like Kaboom.
We're just like Kaboom Racks, and like, can we sponsor you guys? We're like, okay, sure, love it.
Nice. That's where the Kaboom Racks guys trolled me and said that Opti is their favorite ethot. So anyways, that's a totally other story.
Oh man.
anyways.
I've got Kaboom Racks miners. I'm very, very happy with that company.
And they might have the best merch in Bitcoin. But again, that's another story. All right, McShane, let's go into the conversation that we were talking about before we went live. I did have a tweet here, and I'm not going to pull it up, but it's basically the idea. You tweeted, I think it was yesterday. You're like, guys, do you know what happens after the price goes up? And I asked you before, what exactly were you talking about, McShane? And then we'll go into what you think people should be doing so that they don't burn themselves this bull run.
Yeah, I think partly just antagonistic to ask that, but also I think it's an important question. It's one I didn't ask myself when I encountered, my first Bitcoin bull run. Like, the plan was, let's get as much Bitcoin as possible, and I didn't really. It took me a while to think, okay, how do I secure this? It took me a while. The problem is the position that the dollar's in has kind of forced us all to become somewhat amateur capital allocators. So you have to start thinking in terms of risk and trust. You started to buy your first Bitcoin, and I'm speaking to new retail entrants from like 2020 beyond. You've started to accrue some savings in Bitcoin. How do you take trust out of that relationship? Maybe you get out of the ETF, get into spot, get off exchange. Are you running your own node? If you're not running your own node, you don't know how much Bitcoin you have. I'm sorry. Do you have a multi-sig? Is your security for your Bitcoin scaling in some proportion to the value that you're trying to secure there? So I like to give a good 5% thinking about security for my Bitcoin. It's not advice, it's just the number I use. So am I checking my hardware and software? Do I have a geographic plan? Are you going to arbitrage jurisdictions if the laws in the states become untenable for Bitcoiners that really want to have a trustless relationship with their funds? If not, you should. I mean, you should think long term about it. It might be hard to fathom, but you can get there. You can pick up and move somewhere else, or at least have another place that you can go should things get so far as you're being forced to dox your receive addresses to the government with real, where your Bitcoin's actually at. So I don't know. There's a lot on my mind when it comes to that. There's a lot to be prepared for. There's a lot to learn. It's really daunting. Always recommend small steps, but the two most basic things I think you need to cover are risk management. You don't want to over leverage yourself. People get crazy and start leveraging, up, mortgage your house to buy more Bitcoin. But you don't want things to get clawed back from you. You don't want to leave your Bitcoin on any third-party platform. So you got to cover the basics before you start to, in my opinion, allocate a percent of your savings that's in like cold storage, untouchable Bitcoin, a small percent of that, or, depending on how conservative you are, you can start allocating to maybe some riskier plays if you feel the need to try to get more Bitcoin. It's controversial. Everybody's different. This is just the way I see it.
Love it. Yeah. And on that note, like, we are entering price discovery mode. It's number go up only season. So what would you recommend to the new entrants into the Bitcoin space? Like, how can they stay grounded? Because I jokingly said, like, I know I'm already going to be losing my mind. So I'm trying to like preempt myself so that I can stay grounded during this bull run.
I would say, look, I think we were at 15K sometime in the summer or maybe before that. So everyone in the chat, we're all sitting here up nearing, 200% more, we're doing very, very well. You're going to experience a day where you walk into a restaurant to eat and you come back out and your net worth's cut in half, and that's going to freak you out. And I just ask people to mentally prepare for that. Are you overextended? I mean, there may be you need, the fact is you kind of need some cash to navigate this world the way that it is now. If you're in the United States, you need some US dollars. So you want to make sure you have a little bit to make it through, and just that you're financially planning in a way that maybe you haven't before. The most fun part of this is figuring out where can you maximize your cash inflows as a person. Are you picking up a second job? Are you doing freelance work? I used to do free work for Bitcoiners on the side just to kind of learn the industry and hope that it would lead to kind of expertise that people would be willing to pay for in the future. And that always pays off to make good connections with people in the space like that. And then where are you minimizing your expenditure? We all have room to cut unnecessary things out of our life to promote savings. And this is where you get into the really fun cultural side of Bitcoin. That's like, I'm only going to eat meat, no more seed oils, no restaurants, no fiat. I'm not taking any cruises this year. I'm going to cut down on vacations. And it's just, that's the point where you really start to see Bitcoin affect the behavior of people psychologically. And I think ultimately make them more resilient, stronger class, and eventually probably like ethnic group of people, just in the way that the intermarriage between Republicans and Democrats over the years just goes down and down and down. So you basically have, it's not just a culture war, it will become kind of a ethnic bloodline war between people. In that way, I don't think Bitcoiners are going to be able to, share a household in the same way broadly with people who are not on board with this mission of freedom and kind of trustless living and self-sovereignty, because it requires a lot more work, a lot more work on your end to custody your own wealth.
I completely agree with that. I live in the most fiat city in the world, Miami. And a lot of my no-coiner friends who I grew up with, and you never forget your high school friends. Like, you never forget the people that, your friends that you had in your early teens, late teens, early 20s. These are some of the best memories of your life, and you never forget those memories, right? Things change as you get older, and we are operating literally on a different system. I view the world completely differently than they do. They're still operating on the fiat mindset. And us Bitcoiners are operating on a completely different mindset. And I think it just has to do with, the money that we choose to use, the operating system that we're on versus the operating system that they're on, right? The fiat operating system incentivizes short-term thinking, bad health choices. Again, I live in Miami, so I feel like I'm in this surrounded by, this type of behavior where I'm at. And I think Bitcoiners are, totally different breed of people. They're thinking about the future. They're thinking about, setting up citadels. They're thinking about, eating healthy. They're thinking about, starting families, right? Miami's terrible for that. Like most of the girls I grew up with, they're about to hit their 30s, and then they're kind of like, I have to find a husband. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy the stark contrast between Bitcoiners and no coiners, to put it nicely. So I completely agree with your take, McShane. So Opti, I do see something that you have pulled.
Yeah,
up
yeah.
on the side.
Before we go, we'll finish it up with Bitcoin conference. I wanted to touch on something because I did tee up McShane, and just to make it clear, guys, what happens after the price goes up is it usually comes down. So prepare yourself accordingly. But I do want to ask you one quick question, because I did bring this up last week, and we did get some people that were wondering, what's your thoughts on the best practices for UTXO management?
Labeling your UTXOs is very useful, just to keep track of where they've been. And I think that everyone should have 2 stacks. I think you should be mixing coins that you'd prefer to retain privacy, and have sources of non-KYC, non-know your customer coins that you can keep separate from stacks, that you accrue from places like Cash App and Strike that are required to turn your information over to the government. I think it's useful to have both, because we are entering a world where you can spend Bitcoin out and about, and there's really no problem with using your KYC stack to do so. And you can use that stack for things like, maybe you need to take out some sort of fiat denominated loan in the future, and you choose to use some Bitcoin as collateral. They might not accept mixed coins. There's like some kind of game theory problems in the future, but the more of us that mix our coins, the bigger that anonymous UTXO set, the better for everyone. The more privacy we retain, and the more purchasing power we accrue. So I would say keep your stacks separate, learn good UTXO management, learn the trade-offs of consolidating and not consolidating your UTXOs. I think a lot of people are learning that recently with the increased fees as sats per virtual byte goes up. You have to have kind of a plan here, because your 0.00002 UTXO Bitcoin is not going to be spendable at a certain point with the ways that fees could rise. So you might want to consolidate. The trade-off there is you're obviously, kind of flagging to the world, this is a little bit bigger of a honeypot, a little bit bigger of an address, and you're compromising the sources of all that funds and kind of unifying them into one. So you want to take good care, take good notes of where you got your Bitcoin from, and keep your stacks, your KYC and non-KYC, absolutely separate.
100%.
Love it. Okay. All right. So for everyone out there, McShane is head of programming at the Bitcoin conference. You guys have Bitcoin Asia coming up soon. Everyone, probably our audience will most likely be at Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville. So I don't want to put you on the spot here, McShane, but what are you most excited about, and what can the audience expect at either Bitcoin Asia or Bitcoin 2024? You can pick whichever one you want to rant on.
Interesting. I think Bitcoin 2024 honestly is it's beyond the halving. So I'm not really sure what's going to happen. That's going to be an insane celebration any way you dice it. If you look historically, 6 to 18 months after the halving, the Bitcoin price absolutely explodes. That's like the only reliable kind of metric in my mind that you can use to economically plan around stacking. I think it's going to be a celebration, but a place also where we're going to have some difficult conversations. You're going to see this kind of monetary maximalism and platform maximalism ideologies play out a little bit and come to a head. We've all seen this big kind of war on like spam or censorship, however you want to call it, inscriptions, and Bitcoin as just a perfect money that doesn't need to change, that doesn't need to incorporate the features and kind of utility sets of other tokens. It's a super interesting debate. I have my thoughts on the future of this. I mean, however you want to dice it, we are living in a multi-chain world, right? So one of the interesting things about Bitcoin Asia is that world really doesn't, that kind of Bitcoin only world, that's not really a lens over there. There aren't really groups of people that are advocating for Bitcoin only, Bitcoin maximalism, you know. I'm not really sure why that is, why it hasn't taken hold there, but what it does is allows you to kind of think realistically, like, okay, what is the future of Bitcoin development? It seems that we are, at least some contingent of Bitcoiners are interested in bringing on the feature sets in a way that doesn't compromise the underlying auditability and security of Bitcoin, like the Nakamoto consensus. I think everyone agrees we don't want to change that. We don't want to fuck up Bitcoin just to have smart contracts or something. So the question becomes like, how do we build on layer 2s and 3s? And what are we going to do when all these people come? I honestly, I find it really odd that people are so hostile to inscribers, even if I don't agree with what they're doing. I don't feel that I have the right to exercise judgment over how they spend their Bitcoin, right? That's kind of the whole point. So it's just a very heated landscape, and I'm excited to have some of these arguments out on stage and see how people's minds change as the price rises, and we do get more and more people coming to put their fucking NFTs on Bitcoin, but they're also running their own nodes, teaching others to run their own nodes. I mean, these are real things that are happening. So, yeah.
So mega bull run conference confirmed.
Yeah, mega bull run conference. I mean, this is always how it is. This one and perhaps the year after are going to be absolutely huge, depending on how the price comes. But the other interesting cultural clash is this new field of Bitcoiners, of the institutional Bitcoiners, who have absolutely nothing in common with us. You know, these are wealthy trust fund kids, or, you know, Wall Street traders, whatever they are, you know, family offices. They're coming in, and we are going to have to work together on some things. They're going to catch up quick. They have unlimited resources at their disposal to learn about how Bitcoin works and has changed. And we're going to have to be ready for, like, I'm actually quite concerned about like misinformation and psychological attacks on Bitcoin by way of tricking people into, you know, some kind of consensus down the road that is not ideal. It's not the vision. It's not what we want as Bitcoiners. But not to spread FUD. I'm just saying there's a lot of interesting cultures. Like, everything that rises here has to converge. So we're gonna make a lot of new friends and enemies along the way, and it's gonna be pretty fun.
Love it. Okay, not too hard pivot, but we do know that you are a huge Nostr advocate. Is Nostr the future of social media?
The future of social media itself, I don't know, but of like uncensorable communication, yeah, I think so. I also run a Nostr conference, and we're coming to Riga. We're going to pair up with Baltic Honey Badger, because obviously there's a lot that these protocols have in common. The Nostr protocol and the Bitcoin protocol, Tor. There are a lot of open source protocols that that we as Bitcoiners use often. And I want these communities to converge. I want all Bitcoiners to try Nostr. It's very exciting and fun to be so early to something. I mean, it's only a few years old. And it gives you a lot more freedom to communicate without that privacy trade-off. You're giving up no data involuntarily when you use Nostr. The user agreement's hilarious. It just says this: we do not collect any data on you. You know, it's just what you post, which for most people they're like, who cares? There's only like, 100,000 people who gives a shit. But it matters over time. It matters if you live in Saudi Arabia and you're going to get executed for your tweets. It matters if you want to retain anonymity and not pay for a blue check, and you still want to feel seen and heard and have virtual community. It matters if you want free and open source marketplaces. And I think that's coming in a pretty robust way to Nostr. It's I think it's important to point out, like, we actually don't know. There's like more devs working on Nostr and more projects right now than there are users. And that's because the potential of this thing is so much, has many broader implications than just social media. So if you're interested in Bitcoin a little bit from the technical aspect of it, I'd urge you to look into open source software development in general, and to definitely try Nostr.
All right. Before I pass it to Nico, if he wants to chime in, is it Nostr or Nostr?
I say Nostr. I'm not changing. I don't think there's consensus.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. Whatever you want to choose your own adventure. Nico, you want to chime in before I ask McShane the last question I always ask our guests?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, so the Nostr thing is incredibly fascinating, just from the aspect of, there was first the ADMITS app, then there's the the Primal app, and Primal like kind of tweaked some things, you could say, made it a little bit better. They added the wallet in there, and you could see, when you say the marketplace, you could see that coming. When you have the wallet implemented in the in the app itself, you see that. And the beauty of this is, this isn't just Twitter where they can just take your account, put it off the just ban your account, take it, delete your account, now you're gone, right? Regardless of the app, you can take everything with you, as long as you have your private key and then your public key. I don't know I know it's called a little bit differently. So yeah, I think it's really exciting. But to go back to Opti's original question to you, which is it the future? Well, it clearly, Twitter has the critical mass. Clearly, YouTube has the critical mass. However, if these platforms, now it's a little bit different that Elon has took it over, but like, for example, YouTube, if they continue going down that route of banning certain channels because of their political thoughts, I kind of see Nostr as a one-way door, just as I see Bitcoin as a one-way door, right? You don't go from Bitcoin back to fiat. You go from fiat to Bitcoin, and then you're like, it's a lot nicer here. I kind of don't want to go back, right? So yeah, I'm extremely bullish on it, and I think we're in the infancy of it, right? So if people want to find out more about Nostr itself, because I think it's a little bit more harder to understand, harder for people to get their minds around. You said that you were organizing a conference in Riga. So what sources do you recommend? Like, where would you start if someone wanted to learn more about Nostr, if they're interested about it, how to create an account? What would you recommend to them?
If you want to run a desktop client, go to primal.net. If you have an iOS device, download ADMITS, Primal. If you have an Android device, there's a suite of clients you can use as well. I think one thing I wanted to touch on that you said there, just real quick, these technologies are orthogonal. This is not the same thing or a remake of Twitter at all. You can't have uncensored conversations at companies. It's not how it works. They're always beholden to the surveillance state. and they will always compromise user privacy for that state. This notion that Twitter is a freedom platform of free speech is complete bullshit. All of us know that at heart. There are things you can't say. There are things that will, the algorithm's primed to promote the agenda of the heads of that company, and that's not the case. That's not the case for Nostr at all. So I definitely agree with you. I think it's a one-way door. Yeah, just go check it out and play with it. It's really not. It's a lot easier to set up than a Twitter or a Google account or something like this, because it requires no personal information. Join as a NIM. You'll be given an NPub and an NSEC, a public and private key. We know how to use these from Bitcoin. Keep your secret key secret. And you're off to the races. You can start posting immediately. It takes less than a second to make the account. And you can grow it from there. Every Bitcoiner should try it. If you haven't, you're behind. Get on it. It takes just an afternoon to get to know Nostr, I think.
What client are you using right now? What's your favorite client at the moment?
I don't really have a favorite. I use different clients for different things. If I'm gonna do a lot of zapping, I tend to use Primal. If I'm on desktop, I love using Primal. I use Damus at home, like from my phone, especially if I want to upload media. They're really good. I can do really high quality, long videos on Damus, show people pictures of the Citadel, get things. I don't know. It kind of depends what you want to do. I'd recommend people just try them out. If the marketplace isn't offering something that you find valuable, the beautiful thing is you can just make your own. You can make your own Nostr client pretty quickly. It's a pretty simple protocol.
Love it. Okay, so just wrapping up, McShane, and I try to ask, sometimes I forget, but what would be your last two sats to the audience? It could be anything that we talked about. It could be anything you haven't talked about. What is the last message you want to leave with the viewers?
I mean, you've heard it before. Get your Bitcoin into self-custody. If you've never used a hardware wallet, get one. Get a cold card. Get something. The Foundation Passport. Get something. Try it out. Learn to use passphrase or multi-sig. I think that's also important. So you're not, honeypotting your household. Learn about geographically distributed multi-sigs, and get your Bitcoin off the exchanges and get out of that spot ETF garbage.
AKA captured Bitcoin. Yeah, beautifully.
Wait, Nico, before you go, McShane, I did see your tweet, or I think you quote tweeted, you're like, the spot Bitcoin ETF is just layer 2 for boomers, and that had me cracking up this morning.
It is. Yeah.
Such a good framing. That's good framing. All right, Nico, we can roll this out. Yep. Thanks, McShane. That was great.
Captured Bitcoin versus spot Bitcoin. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. I'm your host, Nico. This is my co-host, Optimus Fields. This is our guest, McShane. You can go follow him at McShane_writes. You can go check him out on Nostr, McShane. By the way, we do have a promo code for the Bitcoin conferences. You can use promo code SIMPLY. It'll get you 10% off. Definitely highly recommend them. I've been going since Bitcoin 2021. They're a lot of fun, especially if you're trying to get a job in the industry. I cannot recommend them enough. They're incredible, especially Industry Day. Definitely recommend that. Get that type of ticket. And McShane, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Really, really appreciate it. And hope to see you in Nashville.
It's been a blast, man. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. All right, guys, that was our episode. If you enjoyed the show, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing if you feel like we provided you value. We'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Peace out, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.